Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time you're watching this video. I'm your host, D14463, and welcome to another edition of Klondike After Hours, your main source for Army news in the Klondike and Armies community. And let's kick off this week learning that SWAT entered into a hiatus. Yes, you heard that right. On January 3, the Special Weapons and Tactics experienced several leadership inductions. Nonetheless, right after they inducted new leadership, after 1 week, they announced the Army would be going into a hiatus. In early December, the Army inducted two new leaders, Ex-Demon and AB, in hopes of rebuilding a positive outlook in the community. Later, Ex-Demon announced that he would be stepping down after spending weeks dedicating himself to keeping SWAT alive and strengthening their numbers as a small-medium army, building a prominent legacy and carrying SWAT's reputation forward. However, as I said, this did not last long. Leaders attributed a sudden decline to a noticeable lack of staff participation, weak recruiting efforts, and an overall drop in internal activity and morale. As a result, events became inconsistent, leadership and engagement among members faded, making it difficult for the Army to function. SWAT struggled to maintain its identity and momentum within the community. So, due to recent pressures and challenges, FWAPO stepped down on January 9, and SWAT entered into a hiatus. Right after they entered into this hiatus, they allied with the Shadow Legionaries. Well, it was a short-lived alliance. And speaking of hiatus, the Elite Guardians announced yet another hiatus. In a shocking turn of events, the Elite Guardians have officially announced the Army would be pausing its activities, aiming to focus on other CPPS and growth. On January 6, CGCP leader Lana announced that the Army is officially going into hiatus. In her announcement, she stated that they will be leaving the Army community and focusing on other CPPS and focusing on rebuilding after some moments of instability across last year. Additionally, all allies of EGCP are now in neutral status. More information about the hiatus has not yet been announced by the leadership. And more unfortunate news for the community. On January 5th, the Scarlet Republic shattered broader alliances with the Elite Guardians since they entered into a hiatus, and with Penguins of Agartha. The Scarlet Republic reformed shortly after the hiatus began on December 11. Since then, they rebuilt their alliance through the new year. However, suddenly on January 5th, they decided to end both alliances with EGCP and POA. From their announcement on Discord, they stressed that they do not have any issues with either army. Instead, they felt that in the first generation, having fewer alliances was beneficial to their growth, especially with newer SM armies. They are in the process of finding new alliances to replace these two that they had to drop. On more SM news, a sudden shift in the tsunami's tide happened after the Army declared war on the Void troops. A significant shift also arises in leadership within the Army, right after the declaration was issued. Their newly inducted leader Tiny Guy declared war on VT, with Dennisman, the creator of the Army, having the faintest clue about it. Among all this, VT had no response to this call-out, the reason being that the war was unvalidated by VT and Dennisman, the founder of Tsunamis. The situation ended comically, with Tiny Guy demoted to staff in training within the Army, with no further information given out by Dennisman. It's clear that amidst all this overwhelming surge of circumstances, Tsunamis responded and addressed the issues proactively to prevent further escalation of this matter. And the first war of the year takes place. The Crimson Sovereign returned to the Army community in an exhilarating and dramatic revival. Within a day of the revival, the Penguins of Agartha declared an off-map war against Fruit Salad's army, the Crimson Sovereign, in a wild twist of events. There were two invasions scheduled, however, both were cancelled due to the lack of judges to judge the war battles. However, a couple of days later, Berlin POA's leader announced that both armies had signed a peace treaty. Well, for sure it was a short-lived war with 2 cancelled battles. But that's okay, war is war. And let's wrap it up with this week's top 10. In first place, we have the Rebel Penguin Federation once again. In second, the Army of the Penguin once more. In third place, we see the Water Vikings rising once again. And while the aliens dropped to fourth, the Templars managed to keep their place in fifth, and the Void Troops rose to sixth. The Scarlet Republic saw a rise in their activity with their anniversary event in which they maxed 41, justifying their rise to 7th place. And in 8th place, we saw the Dark Warriors falling 2 places. In 9th, we see the Help Force, and in 10th place, the Shadow Legionaries rising 1 position. And that's it for this week. I hope you have enjoyed this week's news, and we hope to see a more active week for major armies next week. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Make sure to share, comment, and leave a like, and bye bye, see you.